So there's a midrash that we find where Rabbi Shimon was struggling and struggling and struggling, and I have the midrash in my book just because I had to check it out, but struggling with why is it that human beings were in fact created? After all, we're feisty little people. We lie, we hide, and we trick. And so the midrash that I'm referring to is the story where these two groups of angels were going back and forth. In fact, all of the angels were going back and forth and arguing with God about why should humanity even be created. The angel of loving kindness and the angel of justice argued, in fact, in favor of the creation of human beings who would of course strive to do acts of loving kindness and justice. But the angel of truth and the angel of peace disagreed. The angel of peace argued humans would be entirely made up of conflict. We would go after each other. We would come at each other. We would in fact hurt one another. And the angel of truth argued that human beings would be made up of a bunch of lies. We would tell stories, sometimes to get ourselves out of difficult situations, and sometimes to highlight somebody else's fault and deflect any issues onto them. I know none of you have ever done anything like that in this room, ever, not once. We're always honest and took full responsibility for everything you've ever done. In response, God flung the angel of truth to the earth, whereupon all of the ministering angels gathered around God and said, "But Master of all of the worlds, is not truth your own seal? Raise truth back up from the earth." Truth, the angel of truth, then at that moment decided to speak, saying, "We humans are indeed entirely made up of lies." So look no further, of course, than this week's Parsha, where we find Isaac being lied to by not only one person, his wife, as if it wasn't bad enough, but by two, his son, Jacob. All over something as simple and as silly, maybe as silly as a birthright, maybe as important as love. We see, of course, that after Isaac is lied to and Jacob manipulates his brother Esau, we hear that Esau, when denied the blessing of his father, cries out, sobbing bitterly and saying, "Bless me too, Father." We have all heard that cry when we've experienced injustice, conflict, and been lied to, manipulated. There hasn't been one of us where that hasn't happened at some point in our life, where it was Esau in this story who was in fact robbed of his dignity, robbed of his pride, and robbed in one sense of his own identity. Esau, of course, had already experienced being lied to and manipulated before, not by, in this case, Isaac and Rebekah together, but earlier in the narrative, earlier in the Parsha, by Jacob alone over an issue of red lentil stew when Esau had returned to the field famished, starving, really craving and needing nourishment. Jacob tricked him. The rabbis were so troubled by what Jacob did that they went out of their way to justify Jacob's actions, because even for them it was hard enough to see that Jacob, the father of the Israelite people, would manipulate his own brother. They went on to describe how evil Esau was. They had to. For why else would it be that all of these things happened? Happened. Rashi furthers that whole idea, for example, and tells us that it was not Jacob who was the great trickster between the two brothers, but rather it was Esau. And he totally inverts who was doing the tricking. There's midrashim that deny that it was Esau who was the innocent victim, rather that highlight how it was Jacob who was simply acting out of a need for self-preservation. And it begs the question, what was going on in this family that there was such manipulation and such lying? Where was truth? Where was integrity? There's a Hasidic master, Rabbi Gedalia of Linz, who shares a pathway of understanding regarding truth. And he teaches, quote, "It should be obvious to anyone who pays attention to the quality of truth. It is a vital force which sustains all of creation. Truth is contained even in the husk. It is the force that sustains everything. It is the mystery, the teaching of the sages. Any falsehood that does not also have some truth in it will not, in the end, be sustained." Meaning, even when there is falsehood going on, truth will win out. For the angel of truth was so concerned, as I shared in the very beginning, that humanity is built on lies. But Rabbi Gedalia says there are lies, there are falsehoods, there are manipulations, and there is evil, but it is always truth. We know, and we discussed in Torah study earlier, that Rebecca greatly suffered during her pregnancy. And she received a prophecy from God. And the prophecy was that there are two people in your belly, two nations shall branch off from one another as they emerge from your womb. One people shall prevail over the other, the elder shall serve the younger. Perhaps when she heard that prophecy, she was living out her truth. And her truth was to guarantee that that prophecy would in fact come to fruition. So she knew that to level the playing field, she helped Jacob become the trickster. She supported that cunning. That was, in fact, her truth. Jacob, on the other hand, had to go through multiple journeys on his own to discover his truth. He had to figure out that it is not the way of the world to manipulate others, as he did and tried to do to Laban, as he tried to do and had previously done to Esau later in his life, because he himself was the victim of trickery. By going through that journey, he figured out that he needed to tell the truth. It was Esau too who went on his own spiritual journey of sorts. Esau reminds us in a way that no matter how hard we try, no matter how much we believe we are a good person, we can't necessarily change someone's opinion or how they treat us. Esau could not make his mother treat him any better than she did, could not convince Jacob that he was in fact a trusting and loving brother, could not even entice his father to reverse the blessing that was bestowed upon him. Esau went through a journey of powerlessness, of loss of control, of having and being and experiencing the choices of others being played out upon him. As a result, he had to develop an understanding of what it means to live in your truth. After countless years of alienation, Esau grew. Esau matured. And when Esau was finally reunited with Jacob, the two of them came together and hugged one another. It was Esau who hugs and kisses Jacob tightly. Jacob offered him gifts. Esau declines. Esau, in this regard, demonstrates tremendous inner strength, inner fortitude, and integrity. He realizes that he has enough and that he is enough. He is confident in who he is. He is able to forgive his brother and accept his brother because of the person that he has become. And so it is with us. We all go through these struggles. We all strive. We question, what is truth? Why do bad things happen to us? And what is the meaning of all of this? Perhaps, as is demonstrated in this parsha, it is about going on your journey and figuring out some lesson that you need to learn. For Rebecca, it was in being a mom and living out what she thought was God's ideal. For Jacob, it was learning that trickery and manipulation, well, it may get you what you want in the instantaneous moment, is not necessarily going to get you your goal. And for Esau, it was in learning that even though he was put down upon by family members in those inner circles closest to him, he himself was enough. In the end, all of these people were not just characters, but were embodiment that within that very verse and very saying that I shared with you earlier, that within even some falsehood, if there is a little bit of a kernel of truth, even in falsehood, the truth will, in fact, win out. Shabbat Shalom.